Welcome back to this very special day, the 20th video since we started 3 weeks ago, and also a very special dedication to a dear friend, part of my extended family, a first cousin's fiance. His birthday's on Friday, which is 4 days from today. I am making this video a little bit early because I want to give them time to decide if they can include one of these dishes or the other suggestions I'm going to give later on. So that's why we're doing it early. Also gives me time to upload it and set up the subtitles so the family who don't speak English can follow along. I imagine they'll be watching this the night before the actual birthday, because that's what when I heard is the birthday celebration with family. And maybe they're all together in the kitchen. Maybe someone's sitting right there on the two-seater couch. Maybe some people are sitting at the table. Maybe one or two people are standing right here because they've just come in, or maybe they have to go and do something else. So, very exciting video. I have two things prepared. A fire's already going, and I did some preparation beforehand so I could do this video in one segment so that I can upload it today. I don't have the software yet to splice multiple segments together. Plan is to go to the city this week and get that software. So let me explain what we have. In this saucepan there is lentils, split peas, and raw peanuts that I washed and rinsed, and I soaked them for about 4 hours. You can soak it overnight if you want to make it the next morning, or if you want to make it in the evening, you can soak them in the morning before you go off to work or school. So when you come back, they'll be ready to cook. After the 4 hours of soaking, I put a little bit of water, and the water came almost to a boil. I added the three items: lentils, split pea, raw peanut. After I had emptied the water they were soaking in, I'm pointing to here because that's where I put them. They were in one of these containers. And when the water was almost boiling, I added them to the water with a little bit of salt. Sometimes I also add an oil or butter, but I didn't. I don't know why. So they cooked for about 20 minutes. As soon as the water got back to a boil, I put it to the lowest heat possible, and they cooked for 20 minutes. Then I also added 2 celery stalks, a small wedge of cabbage, and carrot that I had peeled, and I had washed and chopped all the vegetables, and I put them here for the last 15-20 minutes of cooking time, and it's almost done. I'll turn it off in a few minutes, and as I wait for the dish to cool down, everything will soak up the water. Let me show you. I can't really show you very much. Here it is. You can see a little bit of the ingredients. So this is a nutritious meal. This could be the meal, especially if I add a piece of the homemade bread that I like to make. So fairly simple, yeah? This is the other dish. Let's start it out the exact same way. I have here whole grain wheat and red quinoa that I soaked same time as these, about 4 hours in water. I washed and rinsed the quinoa and the whole grain wheat, and then I put them in a container with some water, enough to cover the seed and the grain. And then after 4 hours I rinsed it, washed it, and in this frying pan I put a little bit of water, about half a teaspoon of salt, and about a tablespoon of virgin olive oil. The oil helps them not to stick together. I think it's a useful addition to this cooking process. And I use the frying pan because this way you can see. This is done. I'm going to turn this off. So you can see it. And then after about 15 minutes that the water had boiled, I had put the quinoa and the whole grain wheat in the water. I turned it to low heat, the lowest setting possible. After about 15 minutes, 10 minutes, about there, 10 or 15 minutes, I added a chopped up tomato that I had washed and rinsed beforehand. Now it's almost done. There's probably less than 5 minutes. I'm going to add, this is pumpkin that I washed and chopped up into little cubes. That's going to go in there. The pumpkin, there's a piece of tomato as well. The pumpkin doesn't need very long to cook, especially when it's in these really small cubes. And I prefer my pumpkin to have some consistency rather than just melting in my mouth, which will happen if you cook the pumpkin extra. Not extra, but if you cook it to the point where you like it soft, it'll be soft. I prefer to have a little bit of substance when I'm chewing it. So that'll be only 2 or 3 minutes, because this will also sit for about 10 or 15 minutes before I eat it, and that process will continue to cook the pumpkin. And then the last ingredient I will add in about 2 minutes is right here. This is spinach that I washed and chopped up into smaller pieces. This I don't really want to cook, I just want to heat it through. Many vegetables and food are better when they are raw, or at least mostly raw, because the cooking process can damage the nutritional value by damaging the food, especially if it's overcooked. So I try not to overcook. I also try to use low heat, the lowest heat possible, because the higher the heat, oh, this is almost done. The higher the heat, the more damage is created to the food, which means less nutrition for you when you eat it. So because that's almost done, I'm going to add the spinach right now. And then in less than a minute, I'll turn the fire off and allow the heat inside to continue cooking the spinach and the pumpkin. So it's a fairly simple process. It just requires a bit of prep beforehand. But even that's really easy. And there is a difference of opinion amongst the experts if these food items actually need to be soaked beforehand. The lentils and the split peas and the raw peanut, yeah, it helps a lot with the cook time. It reduces how much time you have to cook it. And in my opinion of the quinoa and the whole grain wheat and even whole grain rice, if you soak it beforehand, water has more time to get into the center of the food item, and then it makes it easier for the body to digest. So that's my meal, and maybe something will happen similar on Thursday night in the family home. But I want to give you some suggestions of what you can do. First of all, both of these can be part of a bread batter. If you add in a bowl, depends on how much you want to make. Let's say you're going to make about that much. You'd want at least 4 eggs, maybe 6. You could add some flour, whole wheat flour or wheat flour, or if you have some nut or seed powders. And then you would add some of this or some of this to the batter, mix everything together. Maybe you want to add some butter, or you could even add some kind of cheese. And if you wanted to make it extra special, if you eat bacon, you could add bacon or sausage or salami or fried onions or garlic. Depends on how much flavor you want. And then once you have everything mixed together, put it in a preheated oven for about, depends on how much you're making. That quantity would probably take about 40 minutes to cook at a temperature of about 350, 370. Same thing with this. I'm going to turn the heat off. I get distracted. Same thing with this. Same kind of batter. Same kind of suggestions for what you want to add. And you could mix them both together. Yeah. It's going to be very nutritious. You'll just, you won't be able to taste as much the individual flavors because there'll be so many flavors. And to go back to the pre-soak, if you want to bake, make a bread batter or a cake batter with quinoa, amaranth, the whole grain wheat or the whole grain rice, it's better to pre-soak and even cook the grain or the seed a little bit longer so that there's more water inside, because the baking process dries the item, and if there's not enough water, it could be crunchy, which could be painful if someone has teeth problems or an unfilled cavity. So to use this in the oven, I would suggest the pre-soak and then even to cook it a little bit extra, so there's more water inside before it goes in the oven. Another idea is same kind of thing, but a pancake. The pancake, the pre-soak, not quite so necessary because a pancake's more moist. A lot of the moisture is contained during the process of making a pancake. And with the bread idea, if you make a bread and it's thick enough, you could slice it so that it opens up and you have these two halves, and if you put those in the oven under the grill or broil, you'll get a nice crust, and then you can add what you would add for a bruschetta. The herbs, the tomatoes, parsley or basil. You could put bacon, cheese. In Italy, at least where my family lives, it's very common to use chicken liver pate. That would be really tasty. Parmigiano Reggiano. If you grate some of that freshly, it would be very nice. And I'm looking at my list. Olives, prosciutto, which is a cured ham that's usually sliced very thin, and lasagna. Lasagna was the other idea I had. You can layer it in a lasagna suitable tray. Have your regular meat sauce that you make, or maybe someone else can make it, and then once you get to the house you can add everything together. Put the bechamel, which is a roux, a sauce made with flour, butter, and milk or cream, and then you put a layer of the quinoa or the whole grain wheat, and then you put one more layer, and maybe that's high enough to fill up the cake tin. So I think lasagna could be a possibility. Very tasty, much healthier than the regular version of lasagna, because any kind of pasta or noodle, it's processed, it's man-made, it's very quickly going to convert into sugar once it goes into your stomach. So any kind of pasta. I love pasta, but I'll only eat it once or twice a month because of that sugar quantity that happens very quickly once it enters your stomach, similar to white rice. But lasagna like this, you're not going to have that issue with the blood sugar spike. So there's an idea. Another idea is to make it into a salad. If you do this Thursday morning before you go to the beach, you've soaked everything the night before, you cook it in the morning, then you have your fun day at the beach, you come back, it's cooled, and then you could add so many different ingredients. You could add nuts, seeds, even fruit or dried fruit, cheese. Many people like the raw onion. So that's another idea. And the final idea, I'll add is there's something that I made on the second video. I'm calling it vegan cheese ketchup. If you're familiar with vegan cheese, you soak one of the soft nuts overnight. There's the option of cashew, pistachio, walnut, pecan. Soak it overnight in water. First rinse it and then soak it in the water. And then in the morning or whenever it's soaked long enough, you will drain the water, put it into a blender, and then you would add salt, olive oil, and maybe a little bit of water. So that's vegan cheese. Really tasty, very creamy. And the ketchup part is also very simple. The way I did it, I used 2 tomatoes, 1 small piece of carrot, 1 pear, and 1 apple. The pear and the apple make it sweet without using sugar or syrup. Most store-bought ketchup is not so healthy, mainly because of the sugar that's put into it. So this way it's healthier sugar. And if you don't want it to be sweet, then don't put the pear or the apple. So you cook the tomato and the carrot, and if you want the pear and the apple, until they're fully cooked, and then you put them also in the blender. I let it cool for a little bit before I put it in the blender. And blend everything together. A little bit of salt if you haven't added it yet, because vinegar or ketchup needs to be a little bit salty. And then you would also add a little bit of vinegar. I put in 1 tablespoon of vinegar, and I mixed everything together in a blender, and it was really tasty, like a cross between ketchup and mayonnaise. So that could be an option if you don't want to do anything of this, but you want to try the vegan cheese ketchup. And you know there's going to be bread already once you arrive at the house. Maybe there's also planned to have an appetizer with the other cured meats. The vegan cheese ketchup on top of the meat, or by itself, or with some Parmigiano Reggiano, it would be really tasty. So that's my suggestions. This is going to be my meal in about 10 or 15 minutes. And I like to add a little bit of advice to help you with better food choices. And this came to me about 2 years ago, and I know it's helped some people when I share it. When you're deciding what to eat, if you can look at it and you can decide which plant or animal it came from just by looking at it, then it's probably healthy. It's a whole food. There might be a combination of whole foods together, which is still okay. The main thing about a healthy diet is eating whole food and trying to avoid as much as possible the processed, pre-packaged, pre-cooked. So if you can look at it and decide which animal or plant it came from, then it's very likely healthy to eat. There are certain limitations to this kind of rule, but it's a really easy way to remind yourself, is this healthy? Can I recognize where it came from, which plant or which animal? So that's it for today's 20th video. Very special dedication. Big hugs to everyone back in the kitchen where we had many meals together. And I'm curious to know, you can send me a message if you decided to do something like this. And if you have any other suggestions, that'd be great also. This is going to be my lunch. There's way too much for me to eat. So I'll likely have most of it for lunch, and then whatever's left over I'll have for dinner. So I'm going to put it on a plate. I'm going to add salt and a little bit of extra virgin oil. This one is still a bit liquidy. What I've told a few times in some of the previous videos, if I have something that's a bit too liquidy and I don't want it to be too liquidy, I will add some kind of powder. I have a few seeds and nut powders. I also have marine algae in powdered form. If I put a tablespoon of that in the plate when I serve it, I spin it around, stir everything together, that powder will absorb the liquid. Problem with liquid and solid in your stomach is it kind of confuses the stomach. Is it digesting liquid? Is it digesting solid? The stomach wants one or the other, not both together. And it also dilutes the digestive enzymes. Too much liquid in your stomach, you're going to make the enzymes less effective, which will also cause minor problems. So, happy birthday, tanti auguri, and we'll see you next time.